I don't believe we have any old business.
Nope.
Any committee reports, information items? For the good of the cause for the board? Mrs. Lax.
I have a whole bunch of stuff.
All right.
You're saying that now, then they're gonna be like, please stop talking. So one, I just wanted to piggyback on what Dr. Valesky talked about with our tour yesterday to Hammersholt and to Central. One of the things that I always find fascinating with community programs is when we do our ESL classes for adults, I've always said how difficult it is and how impressed I am with these people that come to this country, go out of their way to learn another language, acclimate and all the challenges, and how grateful they are to do that. And one of the nice things, which actually I have the copy and I'll share it, I think you got one as well. Yesterday at the Summer Academy, they gave us, it's a poetry book. And what they did was they actually had these students write in their original language and then also in English. And I just wanted to, if I could quickly read two of them because I was so impressed. They come from all different countries. But here's one, hard-working immigrant story. I came to America, or what they call the USA. I was sad and mad for leaving my friends. I went to school, everything was new. I was lost, very lost. I could not understand what the other people are saying, and when I went home, I started crying. I thought I will fail. No one was there to help me. I used to get 100s, or what they called A's. This influenced me. I started to be comfortable. I decided to be brave, talk in English, and make new friends. After lots of hard work, I got chosen to be the student of the month. I knew back then that working hard can make anything easy. That was a 10th grader. And then the other one was, this is actually an 11th grader. When I came to America the first day of school, I was so confused because I didn't understand English in American, because it's different from Egypt. The teachers were speaking very fast, and I didn't understand them. Also, on the first day of school, when I went home, I cried, because everything was difficult, and I did not understand, but after a while, I became accustomed to the language, and all my grades were A's and B's, and this year, I earned the silver honor roll. So I just wanted to say that, you know, again, I think being born in this country, you take for granted how lucky we are, and the challenges, and this is just two of the students, but just the challenges that these kids, not only do they come here, know nothing, and how hard it was and everything they gave up, but these two just show you incredible success stories. So I wanted to thank you again for taking us on the tour. And this was just one of it, because, you know, Renee and your staff, at least their staff is so phenomenal. And these kids, you know, it's summer, and the kids were having fun, and it was a beautiful thing to see. And I have to say also, I give so much credit to your staff, because, you know, their friends are on the beach. It's summertime, and these people have the most challenging jobs, and these are some of our most disabled students and most difficult learners. And these women and these men, they just smiled, and they were there, and they cared about these kids. And, you know, I thank you for letting us kind of have a peek at that. Because it really, it meant a lot, so I thank you for that. I just wanted to, you know, thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori, for bringing this to our attention. It's so wonderful that we have a real mix on this board. People like me who aren't home with their kids anymore and around during the day and able to go to these things, but a lot of people who can, because it's so important. And thank you for bringing it to us. And also, let me echo what Lori said. Kudos to your staff and the kids for appreciating every single day what they have.
Mm-hmm. And Barbara and I learned something new. There's a Hammersholt Cafe.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you to Dr. Valesky for buying us breakfast yesterday there. It was,
It was very good.
right? The kid.
It was a very entertaining exchange between me and one of the students.
Share.
He said basically, "Who are you?" And then we worked it out that I was not Pat Bigari. He said, "You don't have the glasses, just have the gray hair."
At least he didn't think you were Dr. Joanne. Just
Well, that's what we were confused about at
that's
first. He
what I
goes,
thought.
you're not the superintendent that was here." And he remembered dates. He remembered, he was back to 2014 and remembered specific dates about when people were here. So he had a very, very good recall of time. And I guess he enjoys sports too. He recalls sports scores and things like that.
You continue to make an impression on everyone in the district.
Either good or bad,
Yes,
one of the two.
either good or
Yeah,
bad.
yeah. It was a great opportunity for the students to see other adults and for us to watch them. And they're always impressive in the cafe when you see their socialization skills, their mathematical skills, organizational skills. They just all come together and they're having fun doing it.
It was the best service we've had in a long
Yeah.
time at any
Yeah.
restaurant.
And you can do gift certificates, we learned yesterday.
I was not aware.
And
My
thank
husband
you
will not be happy to
again
hear I
for
have
those
more
of
gift
you who
certificates to
are
send.
available during the day and can go to these events. Thank you so much for taking the time to do it.
It's a pleasure.
It's an extension of your commitment to the district. Thank you. More? Good.
I do have more.
Good, good.
Well, and Barbara, and to Dana and her people, Barbara and I also did a 5K on Sunday. And the Pride Committee, it was the Veterans 5K.
We walked.
Briskly?
She ran a little. Yeah,
Briskly?
she did run. She did run, so I only walked.
Yeah, so Dana and her crew were there as usual, and they were wonderful. They were there before, they were there after. You actually did the race too, is that right? So I just wanted to point that out because they always impress me that it's not just the things for the educational part of this community, but also the community.
yeah.
Because, especially for me, the veterans are near and dear to my heart, so thank you for that. And yeah, we want medals next year, by the way, that say, I ran the race and didn't die. They give all the people that are really fast, but that was what we thought.
Maybe not exactly that wording, but I appreciate the sentiment. And yes, it's great that our staff.
Maybe I
Okay.
survived the race.
I survived, yeah.
I survived.
Our kids got ones of the finishers, yes.
Our staff's
And they
commitment to
gave,
the district.
the EBA gave out very nice items, including pedometers and many other things. It was very generous of them.
The staff's commitment to the district also goes beyond the walls of each building and beyond the school day. And we are very, very lucky to have that sense of community all year round. So thank you.
Okay, and my last thing,
That's, Lori, bring it on, babe. This is good stuff.
see, I'm worth the wait, right?
Yes,
gotta
you
wait for me to get
are.
here. Okay, so the last thing was, I'll let Barbara do more of the talking so that
No,
you'll be
you're
done
doing
with
well.
me. So Barbara and I had attended a conference, we've talked about this for a while on the board, for later start times, which I know that there are a lot of parents out there that are very interested in. And as a board, we've been committed to trying to look into things that are in the best interest of our students while balancing, obviously, the financial aspect, parents, kids, after-school jobs, sports, all of that. So I just wanted to give you a couple of highlights for the conference, and we have all of the information if anyone is interested in any specifics, but I'll give you a couple of the highlights. So a 1-hour delay, they found to be tied to a 3% gain in math and reading. They found that later start health effects on students, found less depression, less substance abuse, fewer car crashes. They found statistically significant improvement in attendance, reduction in tardiness, and higher grades earned. Teachers felt that 52% of the students were falling asleep in class less. They had better time for planning, and that less than 1 in 5 teachers indicated middle and high school students they felt were ready at the earlier times. Principals felt that there was less agitation, fewer lunchroom incidents, and noticed a quieter tone to their buildings. 92% of parents said the child is easier to live with. Obviously, this was a conference on the benefits of it, so everything I'm telling you is obviously the good side of it. So one of the things I found was interesting, we've always talked about the athletics and how our athletics, our meets and all that start at an earlier time. We're afraid that making our school start times later, therefore our end times later, would affect athletics. One thing I found interesting was they found there was athletic improvement and less injuries reported with later start times. I don't know if this is a possibility for our district, but they talked about possibly having sports practices in the AM. They found that more sleep improves athletic performance. Stanford varsity athletes improved their performance by 9% with free throws and three-pointers for their basketball teams. And that some professional teams are now hiring sleep consultants. And Andre Agadola from the, I think I'm saying it wrong, from the Golden State Warriors, I guess, had hired a sleep consultant to help him to improve his game. So there's 20 years worth of data on the subject, which I found fascinating, that it's been going on for that long. And many districts throughout the country have done it, so there's a lot there. Another interesting thing, elementary kids are up earlier, and we always talk about the effects for the older kids, but they talked about the fact that a lot of these kids are getting up so early, and that basically because their schools start so much later, they're sitting around watching TV, Sesame Street for a couple of hours, and that was a very, the sweet spot of learning. So that was one thing they talked about. Sleep deprivation, they felt, makes you more impulsive. Their brain behaves as if something is wrong when you're sleep deprived, and you take more risks. They also looked into the impact of reduced car accidents, which they found was decreased by 16.5%. And then we always say kids can catch up on the weekend. What I thought was interesting, they said they felt that that wasn't really accurate because sleeping in doesn't make biological sense. You can't make up 5 days of sleep deprivation in 2 days. And then I will end with, and I'll pass it to Barbara, 2 interesting quotes I thought. Dr. Craig Canapari, who's the Assistant Professor of Pediatrics and Medical Director of Pediatric Sleep Program at Yale, said they are getting 70 to 80% of the sleep that they need. Would we tolerate them getting 70 to 80% of the calories or air quality? And the other interesting quote was from Rafael Palaio, who was a lot of fun. He is a doctor from Stanford School of Medicine, said, we tell kids to follow their dreams at graduation time. REM sleep is the last third of that, so that the school system is literally cutting off their dreams. So a little humor there. But the bottom line is there's obviously a lot of research out there. As a district, obviously, we have to look into whether or not this can work for us. But I just wanted to share some of the things that we learned.
First of all, I thank you and Barbara for taking the time. This is a tremendous time commitment. And the fact that the two of you are passionate enough about this to want to do this on your own time is an important point. Sleep deprivation is the worst. Ask any new mother or any new set of parents, right? Sleep deprivation is awful. I don't think anyone would argue with that. Wanting our kids to have as much sleep as possible to ensure that they're at the peak of their form in terms of academics and participation, I don't think anybody could argue with. And I think that the conference is bringing up a lot of terrific points that nobody's going to dispute. The only comments I want to make are, first of all, when we talk about participation of our athletes, it is not just the athletes. It is anybody involved in an extracurricular program. We are talking about thousands of kids, not hundreds. And it's not a matter of when they practice. It's a matter of it is all geared for competition. So if we are on a different schedule than the rest of the county or the rest of the state, it puts our kids at a tremendous disadvantage. We would have to resort to what I know there are some school districts in Monmouth County do, pulling kids out of the last period of school to get them to the competitions on time. And again, it's not just athletics. And I'm not trying to be mean about this, but we have so many groups that are involved in competitive activities. All our academic groups, our debate groups, even the Model UN, we have all our band, our cheerleaders, our chorus, all of our arts. They're all involved in competitions. And until at least the county, if not the whole state, changes their start time, our kids are going to have a problem being competitive in all these activities. Now, while I do not believe that competition is the sole reason for extracurricular activities, the fact remains that most of these are geared towards interactions with other districts. If we're not on the same schedule, how can we make the start time? To me, that's the issue. It's not, should we have practice before or after school? It's not, the length of time of the practice. It's purely logistics. Because to deny our kids the opportunity to participate in all of these extracurricular activities, to me, is a real crime. Not only for their own growth and development, but also very realistically, as they start the college application process, they must have well-rounded transcripts. It can't just be about academics. The colleges want to see them involved in things. And again, so it's working backwards. How do we keep them involved if it's dependent on adhering to a schedule? The other thing is the cost factor for our district in terms of adding another tier of buses. That's a big one. Now, do I think that as our president is fond of saying, we can't tweak things? I love when he says tweak. We can't tweak things? Yeah, I think that we can. And I think that there's a way to tighten it up and maybe to get a later start time in terms of 10, 15, 20-minute increments. And our start time, I think, would involve a tremendous amount of money. And, you know, we keep talking about the amount of money. Could we possibly get a figure that, not tonight, but maybe for the next board meeting? Could we just know what we're talking about? We keep saying it's going to be a lot of money. But
In terms of which aspect?
well, if we wanted to start school a half hour or an hour later, if we wanted to have the elementary school, if we wanted to switch and have the elementary kids first, I would just like to have an idea. We keep saying it's going to be a lot of money. What does that translate into
Well,
figure-wise?
There's.
Again, you're not
Yeah.
tonight, I'm not putting you on
Yeah,
the spot.
I just wanted to state that there are a lot of impacts that we can't quantify too.
Right.
That, you know, when it comes to childcare arrangements for each of our teachers, when they drop them off at care, when they pick them up from care, activities that every child might be involved in after sports, because the entire community is geared on our schedule, our current schedule.
Right.
So it involves, it's not that it's impossible, it's just, as you said, it would involve an entire county movement toward a new change in a community that was willing to support that, because all the activities after school would have to align with that new time.
That may be where Vicky's tweaking may actually work, because one of the things, if I learned nothing there, certainly they say that the best is that 8:30 start time. It's not realistic. But to be honest with you, for these kids, you know, maybe if it is a 20-minute start time, that's still 20 minutes for these kids.
And I think we can,
So,
yeah.
I think it's a critical 20 minutes, too.
So I
You
don't
know,
wanna-
I really do. If we
You know,
could
to
do
me,
something like
I'm not
that.
into the all or nothing, that it has to be,
Right.
you know, if it can be something like that, I've got to believe that these students would probably benefit and appreciate that 20 minutes. And if we can do it where it doesn't cost the district and it doesn't impact all of the extracurricular, then I think it's worth looking into.
And I think that we will look into it, and I think that, look, I had my older son was, by the time he was in 11th grade, was taking all AP classes. He was up till 1, 2, 3 in the morning doing homework, not because he started at midnight, but because he had that much work on top of his extracurricular. And it pained me to have to get him out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, there were a lot of mornings that I drove him to let him sleep an extra 15, 20 minutes so that he didn't have to get there earlier for the bus. So I do think that Mary put it very well, saying that it's a very critical 20 minutes. And I think that we are committed to looking at trying to do that. But I think what the conference is proposing an hour later would be very hard to do in isolation.
And I think also what we learned from the conference is that any changes that are made have to include the whole community, that all the stakeholders have to be consulted. It's not like something you can decide in a week.
Well, that's right what Dr.
You know,
Lesky was saying.
and to piggyback on that, and that the students have to be involved, the parents, the teachers, you know, as well as the administration and you know, the town as well. In fact, in the districts that we saw that did make the change, like Fairfax County, Virginia, which is the largest county in Virginia, and they made this change.
And the whole county did.
The whole county did in that case.
And that
That took a
That's what
lot.
you need, but
That
that's
took
what
a
you
lot of
need,
effort, and it
right.
did
Well, and they also
happen.
have a county system for their
Correct.
schools, so.
Correct. And I know Cherry Hill and
kinda simplifies it a
Tenafly
little
have worked
bit.
on this as well, and it takes time and to do it right.
Yeah.
And I think, and I think if we remember, you know, when we had the subcommittee, the strategic planning subcommittee data that we got back from the parents, one of the priorities was to investigate efficiencies in transportation that could allow adjustments in the instructional start time
Yep.
at all schools. So I feel good that we're going to honor that request. And I do think an advisory committee of some kind would help, whether amongst ourselves and the board, or to have an actual effort to really look into that and to make a plan. Because to say, let's get all the costs in a week, I don't know that that's,
No,
you know, or a couple of
I was just curious
weeks.
about, you know, we keep saying it's gonna cost so much money to put in another tier of busing, but I would just like to have a number in mind.
Absolutely.
It could be in another month.
I have
just-
somebody
for
you
purposes
can
of discussion.
call. I spoke with him at the conference, too. We met Tom Platt. He was a really nice fellow, but I'm sure there's other consultants that did do that kind of work. And he said it's really could be any cost. It could be zero cost, too. It's what you're willing to change.
Because they talked about the efficiencies, and one of the districts found, I guess they did some type of study with UPS drivers, and there was something that they did where they found that if they only made right turns, it cut their route time and it cut the cost of
It's
gasoline.
really
So
interesting.
So it may be the type of
What
thing. that-
happens if they had to make a left?
They find
Well,
another
that was
way.
one thing, but the point
Right.
was that if you look into the
Right.
efficiencies, it may not mean adding another tier of busing. It could be that we look at the routes that we have currently, and if there's better ways to
To
do
tweak
them.
them.
And
Well,
then maybe that.
we- well, just as a reminder, we did that just this past year, this past school year.
Right.
We started out the year with entirely revamped routes. We totally redid the routes, made them more efficient, so we've already been through that exercise. In order to provide a cost estimate, we really have to identify what the parameters are. So, you know, just to say, let's add another tier, we need to know more than that. We need to know what's not gonna happen. So this is a board conversation to
Right.
establish what are the parameters.
Well, and I also want to just remind the public that after our January 26th meeting, was that 2 years ago? now?
Yes.
We
Well,
did
that's-
create a logistics committee
Yeah.
that Dr.
Yeah.
Boley served on, along with staff and community members. And we certainly did look into the possibility of the change in start times, and actually brought up many of the points that you have discussed with us this evening. Unfortunately, we run into the roadblocks that everybody else has mentioned already this evening, but also the fact that the DOE had actually, you know, I think while you were at your conference,
Yeah.
actually
Day
issued a
before,
statement.
the day before.
Yeah,
Good timing.
okay, actually issued a statement saying that, you know, it would be a logistical nightmare and that, at least for the time being, needs to be placed on hold. But, you know, East Brunswick is a rabble-rouser, and, you know, we're not going to do everything DOE tells us to do just because they say we
And we're a
have to
leader
do
in
it.
academic
very-
athletics and the
very-
arts.
I'm sorry, I am
Public
ready to
meeting.
investigate
We
as
love
well.
the DOE.
Oh, I love the DOE too, but I do think that sometimes
Yeah.
we need to do our part in changing things up a little bit.
I also think somebody brought up a good point at some discussion. Might have been one of you guys, about if we have the elementary kids going earlier, that means they're the ones who are going to be waiting when the seasons change in the dark for buses.
Right.
And it would be wonderful to think in an ideal world that not one parent would ever leave their child at a bus stop in the dark when they're in elementary school until the bus comes. Unfortunately, it's not an ideal world.
It's not, but that was actually one of the things that they talked about, was that the elementary students tend to be the ones that have the parental supervision at bus stops. So your younger kids are the
But-
ones that the parents will be there.
Some parents will drop off the kids. They will not wait for the bus.
They may, but then I can tell you when I've been at a bus stop, you know, for example, bad weather, or not even just the elementary, for middle school, if I'm at a bus stop and it's raining out, and there's a child that's on and it's one of our neighbors, as another parent, I've always said to that child, please, have a seat in my car, so, because your bus stops are your community, it's not.
Hey.
Vicky used to open her garage door
My,
on rainy
my,
days.
my corner, my
And they would
house,
stand there.
yeah, is a bus stop,
Breakfast and.
is a bus stop for Hammersholt and the high school in my neighborhood. And I used to let the kids, I used to open my garage doors and let them wait there in the cold weather and the
Yeah.
rain. I didn't make hot chocolate or anything, but I don't want to, come across like a saint, but yeah, I let all the kids, but the problem is, I am not convinced that every parent will do that. And I am worried about the possibility of our very youngest being at bus stops without a parent there. It's not, unfortunately, not every parent has the same sense of
Absolutely.
ethics and
My intention, though,
responsibility.
was just to give, and for Barbara and I, just to give you the
Absolutely.
information, not to debate, because there's so much, on both sides of this, because as you said, we've talked about it before, we've had a parent group that came to us a few years ago, and we've done our homework. I just wanted to give you the information.
No, absolutely,
I
and
think as a parent, it's tough to hear information about how things can be better for students and not want to try and find a way to make that work for these kids.
Absolutely, and I actually think that what Todd said, and again, I'm using his words, tweaking.
Yeah.
I think that that should be something we should be exploring, because even if it is 20 minutes, that 20 minutes could be crucial. And I think that this board will absolutely explore it. And I would love to get a copy of the complete data and research that you brought back. It's obviously better for the kids, so it's something that we'll always explore. And again, thank you for taking your time to do this.
We learned new back ways to Washington DC for traffic, so
There's
if
a
anyone
back
has
way to
any
DC?
questions on that.
Back
I found some interesting back ways.
Barbara, that's a topic for a whole other meeting.
Yes.
Again, thank you, and I think that the board should continue to discuss it. And Mary, I believe you were chair of that subcommittee?
Yes.
Logistics Committee, so it'd be interesting to share the notes from those sessions, because I know that Ken
I
made a
just so
bite.
happened, no.
No, but seriously, and I would love for everybody to get a copy of all the research you brought back. And I think that if we approach it, that we're going to look at it as a way to, even if it's just a small amount of time, to tweak it.
That
Todd,
was
are you
their
listening?
big
I've used
tagline?
tweak 5 times now.
Right, was not to change the question from should we do it to how do we do it. So if the how do we do it is 15 minutes, then again,
Then
we're
we-
taking
then we-
steps in the right direction.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank
Couldn't
you.
agree more. Okay. Anything else? Lee Wu.
Victor, can you watch out our neighbor district if they're doing anything for this topic, for this regard?
At the last roundtable meeting that we discussed it, no other district in Middlesex County was considering doing it.
Yeah.
The one district that did have already a later established start time have no busing. All of their students walk. So that worked for them.
Where's that?
Metuchen.
Oh, yeah,
There you go.
okay.
I think Cherry Hill and Tenafly have explored it. I can, research it further for you.
But we did investigate what would be the parameters, how far can we shift the schedule? And we thought that about 25 minutes is the maximum we could go before we would start to impact the athletics at the end of the day.
Not just the athletics, all the
After school. After
Extracurricular
school.
and athletics at the end of
Yes,
the
no,
day.
I think it's important because Karen, who came to speak before the board, part of the representative of that parent group, made a very good point that when we're talking about student athletes, you're talking only about hundreds of kids. And obviously, we want to make global decisions based on the majority of children. But when you factor in all the extracurriculars that are dependent on interaction with other districts, you are talking about thousands of kids. So it's not just
I
athletics.
stand corrected.
Yeah,
With-
let's
with
take
the
a
finger
look, let's
pointing.
take a look at who's doing it, and,
Do we know what the latest start time is in our county or conference?
In the county, I think it's approaching, I a half hour past ours, so I think it's around 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah. At the high school level. But I can double check that.
County buy-in would be awesome.
Yeah.
It's a start.
And we, I'd be happy to resurrect it at one of our county meetings as
Well,
well.
see if there's a possibility of, within the Red Division, the GMC,
Mhm.
and the other groups that represent our arts groups, our academic competition, if there's some way to address the issue of those events starting later.
Okay.
And then all the rest, like Barbara said, Barbara brought up a great point. Because you've got people dependent on childcare at a certain time, because you've got all different members of the community gearing things around our school schedule, we've got to get buy-in from the whole community. So Barbara, you will be going around to every door in the town knocking on them and letting us know what everyone says.
I'll bring free ice cream.
Thank you. Anybody else? We do have a need for closed session. Whereas the Board of Education must discuss matters which are not appropriate for discussion in a public meeting. The board intends to discuss matters as follows. The East Brunswick Education Association grievance 17-03-05 and contract, and employee number 23609. Whereas the length of the closed session is estimated to be 40 minutes, after which the public meeting of the board may reconvene and action may be taken. Therefore, be it resolved that the East Brunswick Board of Education will recess into closed session for only the aforesaid mentioned subjects. And we just declare that the discussion will be made public at a time when the public's interest in disclosure is greater than any privacy or governmental interest being protected. May I please have a motion
So
to close
moved.
session?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, second by Mr. Hung. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Thank you. We'll see you in a few weeks. Enjoy the rest of your summer.